And it is my great honor to introduce Reverend Rosie Oberlies to us as our speaker today. And I remember meeting her over at First Spiritualist Church, which is always in the kitchen helping with the coffee and all of that. And I said, you know, she's such a sweet, gentle spirit. God has more for her. Reverend Rosie came to First Spiritualist Church in November of 2000 and found and experienced a wonderful healing atmosphere. Like many who come to Spiritualist Church, Reverend Rosie discovered her true treasure, her spiritual path. It is the foundation for serving humanity. She took many of the classes that First Spiritualist Church offered and was ordained a minister on December 11, 2005. Reverend Rosie Oberlies is a Reiki master and now assistant pastor here at First Christian Spiritualist Church. Reverend Rosie believes that we all have come to Earth plane to learn, to live, and express spiritual bliss and spiritual life while we're on Earth and clothed in a physical body. Let's welcome warmly, please, my dear friend, Reverend Rosie Oberlies.
Thank you for the introduction. Yes, the first time I met Reverend Deborah was at the First Spiritualist Church, and I walked in. And it was the year 2000. Yeah, in November, right before Christmas. Yeah. And she was just like she is, Yeah, that's what kept me there, because I just, just it doesn't seem possible. Those years have gone by so quickly. We just, we're really blessed if we've all kind of come through that church and come over here. And we're blessed because of the spiritual, the spiritualness. It's a lifesaver. Yeah, it's a lifesaver. So, I have my other glasses at home. These have bifocals. Well, today, I'm trying to think. It was a bookmark. That's right. It was a bookmarker that had the Psalm 146:6, and it said, "Happy are those that." Okay. Happy who has the God of Jacob as his helper, and whose hope is in the Lord his God, the maker of heaven and earth, and the sea, and everything in them. What caught my eye about this, I'll read it again. The maker of heaven and earth, the sea, and everything in them. And usually, when they talk about creation, they don't usually include the word sea. They might talk about the waters, but they don't use sea. So, I kind of thought, wow, the vastness of the sea. I thought, it's funny how words will touch your mind. So you never know when you're talking to somebody or helping somebody and you say the right word, and you think, oh, I didn't say much. But every word you speak to help somebody, you may not know that it's doing its job. So you shouldn't ever doubt yourself or say, I didn't say that very well. Maybe you just have to trust, that, like the the simple word see, and also, and everything in them, you know, the earth, heavens, the sea, and everything in them. That means in each one. So the sun has the moon, the stars, the heavens. They have the sun, the moon, the stars, especially at night, you know, it's beautiful. It's cool at night. And the earth, well, it gives us food, it gives us a place to survive, but it also gives us amenities. And that's the thing where God creates through you. And you use that creation, that talent, and you build buildings, you know. The car makers, they look at how far the cars have come to now. Now you started with a push button. But what I'm saying is that they have God in them. And I thought, wow. You know, but it's just the little things like this. You know, it has God in them. And what'll help was if we keep that little discipline, is that it'll change your vibration, and it also helps the world increase its vibration, because we're not occupied with the way the world is right now. But this is kind of not even on paper too much, but anyhow, life comes through humanity from the God source of life. Every day we're inching to a higher level of God's plan for us. And we're inching, you know, and slow. So, it's okay, you know. But what they wanted me to read was Isaiah 55, 8 through 15, which is right here. Okay. So what I'm going to read about is a higher level of God's plans for all of us. It's for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. How much have you gone through to figure that one out? You know? And so, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. As the rain and the snow come down from heaven, and do not return to it without watering the earth and making it bud and flourish, so that it yields seed for the sower and bread for the eater, so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire in you, in me. Okay, and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. You will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. And the mountains and the hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clasp their hands. Instead of a thorn bush will grow the pine tree, and instead of the briars, the myrtle will grow. And the myrtle is a very abundant floral tree. Comes in a hot pink and a white. And they're just full of little baby, like this, you know, a little smaller. And that will be for the Lord's renown, for an everlasting sign. You know, a good example of myrtle, you know, this is off the cuff. I had a customer who was a hairdresser, and she was a real dog to work with, you know. And so, anyhow, she left, and then she came back, you know, and I spoke my piece, and it was respectfully, and we got along better. I understood her better, you know. So you can see how a name will bring back a memory that you achieved something. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. Yes, because each one of you have memories, a word or a name, or you'll see a car drive, oh yeah, and it brings back memories, you know. So it makes you appreciate, maybe you had a memory with that, or you just see a lot of it, especially these old cars, the classics, and it brings back memories, and you look back and you think, oh, I remember I was in high school. Oh yeah, that person was really nice to me. So it works each way of, God is talking to you in different ways like that. Okay. So where was I? Already. Okay. Your reason for being in the earth plane at this time in history is to overcome our imperfections and create a better world, honor our sacred contract that we incarnated for. There's Carolyn Mace. Mace. I keep pronouncing that wrong. Mace, and she has a book called Sacred Contracts. In other words, we came in, signed a contract that we were going to live this life, and like going to school, but we don't keep the memory of signing that contract because you don't get your money back. Okay. Each generation has its own history, its biography and geography. But most important is that God is in that history, in that biography, and in that geography. As said in the Bible in Psalms 146, verse 6, happy are those. Oh, I read that already. Okay. Okay, I see. One thing about the heaven and the earth and the sea is that we receive the benefits that enjoyment that God has created. And Lincoln, because I want to talk about everything really on this earth, to this, to that, to you, is, God is within it. And we should be grateful, we should be respectful to each other, and to things, to our Mother Earth, and don't throw trash, put it in the trash can. So, this was the thought of Abraham Lincoln. It was the realization that he thought that there had to be a supreme being that is in every particle of everything that exists. That he believed that there is a supreme being that is in every particle of anything that exists. In the unfolding process of life, of whirling planets, in the infinite cosmos, God's Spirit is in everything. And he thought the Civil War at his command could have ended, but he knew that it had to go its course for a supreme outcome. Because sometimes man has to go through things to learn. So God's Spirit is in the midst of everything, even in the times of trouble like these that are through these historical times. But I want to give an example. I was going to ask permission, but I forgot, but he won't mind. Chris, it's kind of like Chris. He's a contractor. So, because in Carolyn Mace, she talks about your spirit is in anything you do. If you cook, change a diaper, everything's done with love, and you're channeling God. It's done with God, expressing God. So a good example is he wants to build a house for him and Terry, he wants it to be really nice the way they would like to have it, so she can have a nice stove where the warmer comes up and she can put warm food in there and she can cook more and then serve, And he built it, but he built it out of love, and God works through him because he gave him the talent. He gave him the integrity to build it beautifully. And so that house has his spirit in it. That makes sense? Yeah. Yes. But sometimes we take this for granted. We don't think, and until that one little bookmark brought all this, So I'm sharing it with you because you already know it, but we just don't, take the time to think about it. And that's not your fault. We're just busy, We're just busy. Okay, so we do have our times, the troubled times, but man has free will, and some decisions are not always beneficial. If we choose to lead by the source of all life, we are trusting in God. Okay, here's another verse from the church, from the Bible, as in Isaiah 30:21. Whether you turn to the left or to the right, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, "This is the way to go, walk in it." Then you will defile your idols, overlaid with gold, and your images covered with silver, and you will throw them away like a rag and say, "Away with you." We're trusting in God when we listen to that little voice. And I like this passage because sometimes, I don't know what to do. And so to have it verified through the Bible, that listen to that voice and it'll tell you which way to go. And then when you do, you learn from that, and then you really trust Him more until the next time a problem comes, and you do it again, and then you trust Him, and it works out. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want, but it does work out so that you learn something, and you find that you grow spiritually. And some of the things that you wanted to change, it's subtly changed. To put every part of our lives into connection to God's airways is a hard discipline. We try so hard to we think we want to be better, and then we don't change right away. We get impatient with ourselves, but the secret is the change is subtle. You don't see you see the sun, descend and it becomes night, but you can't watch it all the time. But it does descend and change tonight without you really paying attention. And that's what happens to you. You're changing, but you don't realize you are. And then all of a sudden, it's a slow transformation. And it's part of the transformation, that struggle. Because you are changing years of belief that are not beneficial anymore. And Thomas Aquinas. Huh? What is it?
Aquinas.
Aquinas. Okay, because I Googled 3 times and they all had different names. So, anyhow, thank you, teacher. He taught that, I got away with that. He taught that God became human in order that human might become divine. again, he taught that God became human in order that humanity might become divine. And we ask, yet we have free will, and again, sometimes we don't make wise decisions. And we ask, how can we cope with the everyday stress? But it's our chance to go within and turn to hope, and not to focus on the imperfections of others or of life. We have to be aware of our own imperfections. If we are ready to go in, to go within, to search and recognize our shortcomings, we are open to being taught. I came across a magazine called Venture Inward, and that's the magazine that Edgar Casey began. And there was an article of Julian of Norwich. She was an anchorite. An anchoress is someone that commits to prayer and meditation in a small cell for life. The cell was usually attached to a church where they lived, usually. And but during her lifetime, there was a pandemic that she dealt with. Well, people were frantic about nature going awry. She kept her spiritual intellectual composure and grounded. Her belief was that the goodness of life, her belief was in the goodness of life, creation, and humanity. She was committed to sharing and teaching, and her beliefs were to see the darkness is to teach us not to flee from the darkness of the soul, but to stick around for everything that chaos, the unknowing, has to teach us. Her beliefs, instead of yielding to despair or blame, her belief was to not yield to despair or blame. She sought out the goodness of life, creation, and the sacred marriage of grace and nature, a sense of God and nature. Sometimes when we go through this really tough times, we kind of yield to despair and blame. But I kind of went through that, and it really doesn't help, but that's part of your learning. Sometimes you have to go through that. And then you start to feel that your body doesn't feel well, and you just mentally, emotionally don't feel well. And then things come in to help you, and then you go back to rising again. And that's the struggle. It's being human, but you can't let it get to you, especially nowadays. You've got to keep the light, because your light is important to the world. And maybe you don't think so, but it is. Because we help each other here, we talk to each other, and we'll say to each other, oh yes, you're right, I feel better now. So that happens on the outside world too. So please keep up your prayers and your light. And sometimes you have to be a little bold. But if you do it respectfully and God is with you, it will do its job. I thought this was pretty when she said she speaks of God resting in the human soul as his resting place. He has chosen the soul of humanity as his resting place. This is a great city, an honorable throne from where he lovingly reigns. He will never rise nor move away from this spot inside of us. what a wondrous and magnificent place it is where the beloved dwells. He dwells in you. He dwells in everything that is and exists. He creates through man for humanity. So you must look around and see his creation. Yeah, I think I left it back over there. One of them is, I was going to end it. Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't have much, and I was worried that I wouldn't go the 15 minutes, but I went over, huh? But I want to say is your homework is look for God in everything. Amen. Amen. And so